Hello guys, and Russia has just lost another general, and no ordinary general. Igor Kirillov was the head of Russian nuclear, biological and chemical defense forces, and thus a real war criminal responsible for the usage of various forbidden chemical weapons on the front lines in Ukraine and most likely in Syria. He was neutralized early in the morning and, what makes it even more important, in the heart of the evil empire, in Moscow. In the result of the explosion, the general joined the majority of the Russian army in hell. Ukrainian SBU took the responsibility, and actually it is the second successful case within a very short period of time. Because you remember, recently we've spoken about another Russian war criminal, Shatsky, the developer of X-missiles that was also neutralized near Moscow. So let's have a look at this epidemic, what is happening to Russian war criminals inside Russia, and why it is so important for the defeat and demilitarization of Russia. My name is Anna, I'm from Ukraine, I'm in Ukraine, and if you want to see the defeat and collapse of the Russian Federation and also protect yourself against the hybrid warfare, subscribe. We discuss all of that on the channel. And let's start with a brief biography of this general Igor Kirillov. He was a classic Russian general, had experience of working in Germany in 1991-1995, and my condolences to the people in Germany who also had this very dark period in their history. And he was very public. He loved speaking Russian propaganda narratives, and one of his favorite stories actually was about secret American biolabs on the territory of Ukraine, and most importantly, fighter mosquitoes. So it looks like another fighter mosquito finally reached Moscow and targeted the general. You know, it's actually funny that after occupying some of Ukrainian territories on which Russians claim these biolaboratories were located, they did not manage to find any. And I keep asking myself, if we have these fighter mosquitoes, why on earth we don't use them against Russian military? And it seems like we've started. But making it more realistic and serious, this was a very professional special military operation that is worth a separate James Bond style movie, where an explosive was fixed to a scooter that stood next to the porch, and no one apart from the general and his assistant suffered from the explosion. So it is very likely that the scooter was left next to the porch of the general long ago, and on the moment of his exit, a radio signal was sent and a big boom happened. So it is either they had the video observation on the location or they rented a flat nearby, but this means Russia is super vulnerable if it loses the head of nuclear, attention, nuclear, biological and chemical forces in such a simple, I'd say primitive way. And this is good because General Igor Kirillov was a real war criminal. Let me prove you why he was a legitimate target for any defense forces in the world. And actually the United States also fired sanctions on him, partially because of the usage of the forbidden chemical weapons. Subscribe to see the neutralization of more Russian generals and, most importantly, the chief commander Kremlin gobbling Putin. And share the videos on your social media platforms, this is important. So apart from this BS about mosquitoes biolaboratories, the general was responsible for the usage of various chemical weapons on the front lines. You know they are forbidden, but there are official cases, and not one or two, 4,800 cases of usage of various forbidden chemical weapons on the front lines in Ukraine. More than 2,000 Ukrainian soldiers were going through rehabilitation in Ukrainian hospitals with the signs that are fixed according to international rules, the signs that prove Russian usage of forbidden chemical weapons. And you know, even if you don't trust Ukrainian sources, you have to remember what they did to Syria. And of course, Assad's regime, the collapse of which we celebrate these days, remember to check the videos on that on the channel. Assad was fully supported by Russia. Honestly, he was not just supported but controlled, otherwise he would not survive. And it is 100% that the Russian army, Russian chemical forces were used there, and they are to blame. And I think that this General Igor Kirillov, beautifully neutralized by a Ukrainian scooter, was responsible for various war crimes in Syria. And this is another very important reminder to all of us that Russia must be defeated and demilitarized very severely, because lots of innocent lives were lost because of such generals, because of those who support Putin and his actions, or those who pretend they don't notice how he violates all the rules on this planet and, most importantly, undermines the value of human life. You know, when people still try to focus on Ukraine as a local problem, they forget about this total humiliation of all rules, laws, and agreements, but most importantly, Putin's attitude to human life, both in his army and in the world globally. You know, there are awful videos of North Korean soldiers who've already joined Russian soldiers in hell, and there are some things that I'm not ready to repeat on YouTube because I am too sensitive to them. How they destroy the faces of the soldiers so that they cannot be recognized, and North Korean army never learn about the size of losses that they experience right now here. And our weak reaction, and here I mean not Ukrainian, but just of the democratic world, to this decision to allow Putin use an army of another nuclear state here in Ukraine, is also to blame. It's also a sin. And that is why we have to keep demilitarizing Russia. And sometimes this demilitarization is not just about the destruction of their ammunition depot or military air bases, but also about the neutralization of war criminals. And here I will connect a video about another one neutralized in the swampy forests near Moscow. That was a Russian developer and head of the construction facilities, Shatsky, who was working on the upgrade of Russian X-missiles. And this is another reminder. Russia uses old crap and names it Oreshnik or whatnot to keep people afraid, but not in not developing or doing something in reality. Russia is super vulnerable. Russia is on the edge of collapse economically, but what is also interesting, militarily. That's why they have North Korean soldiers joining them, and that is why it is actually easy to neutralize their generals, to neutralize their war criminals while they are in Moscow, literally a couple of kilometers away from the Kremlin. Can't wait to see a fighter mosquito visiting that Kremlin and all of the Putin's bunkers. Subscribe to see that, and please share the videos on your social media platforms, and also join me on Instagram, X, Threads, Blue Sky, and of course our community in Discord. Thank you for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channel. Check our merch shop for lots of good items that work well as reminders and conversation starters about Ukraine. But most importantly, thank you for your constant support, for your advice, for your comments, and for your love and friendship. I value that a lot, and all of us in Ukraine. Slava Ukraini!